let's just do that, right? So let's start with QBs, okay? I think they only
Sure.
carry 2 QBs. Do
Agree.
you think they carry 3? I mean, I think they just roll with Fields and Simeon and they put Peterman on the practice squad.
That seems like the most likely option. It doesn't seem like there's any reason to keep Peterman around. Around on the active roster, I should say. Obviously, he's
Right.
been around the league. He's an NFL quarterback. As much as you want to laugh at that, I'm sure there are people laughing at that somewhere. But he's a good practice squad guy to have. Get the guys the reps. Yeah, but I think it's only going to be 2.
Did Peterman throw a pick in the preseason?
Probably.
Like, if he didn't throw a pick in the preseason, that's a Hall of Fame achievement. Like, that is like, what were the odds of Nathan Peterman not to throw an interception in the preseason? Astronomical. The guy threw like 7 interceptions in a game. Like, respect Nathan Peterman. Put some respect on his name. So we think the Bears only carry 2 quarterbacks. And I know it's fearful because there's always that nightmare scenario where Fields goes down, and then, oh my God, you are on game day with 2 active QBs on the roster, active for the game. If Fields goes down, in the first quarter, and Simeon goes down, who's your emergency QB? I know in the past it was like Tariq Cohen because he could throw the ball a little bit. I don't know who the emergency QB for this team. I think Dave Montgomery actually had a little bit of history playing quarterback. I remember that being like floated around years ago. So Dave Montgomery, the emergency QB. All right, so we got 2 QBs there, Fields and Simeon. Fullback, obviously you're only carrying Kari Blasingame.
Yep.
Running backs, this is where things start to get interesting for me. I think they only carry 3. I do. I think they carry Dave Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, and Treston Ebner. Now, there's questions about whether Treston Ebner is going to be healthy for week 1. So that really kind of changes the landscape for running back. But I just think because of how top-heavy it is, because of how good Khalil Herbert is, it's going to be 90% Herbert and Montgomery, and then it'll be a sprinkle of Ebner. What's the reason to carry Treston Ebner when you or to carry Darrington Evans, throw him on the practice squad? You don't need to carry him on the active roster when you could, put maybe an extra wide receiver on there or an extra lineman because those are positions where there's a little bit more depth maybe. So I think it's just the 3 of them. Do you have 3 or you think they carry Darrington Evans as well?
I could see Evans just for his special teams versatility.
It's a good thing to consider.
And we know that the Bears especially, they put a lot of value in that. So he has played well on special teams. I think that could be a sign here, but I think they only keep the 3. Of course, that depends on Treston Ebner's health and how that shakes out. But as of right this moment, I would say 3, and then obviously blessing him.
Okay, because I've seen a lot of people who are who really think they're going to carry 4 and they're going to carry, Darrington Evans. I mean, they carried 3 last year. And I just think, again, because if Khalil Herbert wasn't as established, if he was more of a guy we were more unsure about, then I'd be like, okay, we can carry 4 then, because then you can kind of see, out of those 3 guys, Herbert, Ebner, and Evans, who's going to break out, who's going to be the number 2. But we know that this is 1-2. It's almost like 1A, 1B at this point with Dave Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Not actually, because Dave Montgomery's going to still get 70% of snaps. But we know Khalil Herbert is the number 2 guy, and they're not going to do much else other than Herbert and Montgomery. So, by the way, Dave Montgomery, I tweeted this out on Saturday. This is another thing I saw on Saturday. If it is financially possible, I mean, we've talked so much on the show about how we don't think it's likely Dave Montgomery will be carried on this team next year, just given the way it happens now for running backs in the league. But God, do I want that guy to be a Bear. I mean, he is really freaking good. And Dave Montgomery is a really good football player. If it is possible, and I'm starting to get a little bit more hopeful because of how much money they have next year, I would absolutely love for him to be on the Bears and get a little contract extension. That's what I would want. But we'll see. Again, do not overpay for running backs. But let's go to wide receivers now. I think they carry 6, okay? I think they carry 6. So I think it's Darnell Mooney, obviously, Byron Pringle, lock, Velus Jones Jr., lock, Equanimeous St. Brown, lock. Then I think it's Dante Pettis. Okay. And then I think it's Tajay Sharp. And I think the N'Keal
Really?
What's the value for keeping N'Keal Harry on the roster right now? I mean, I don't know. If he's not going to play for 8 weeks, I mean, you don't even know what he's going to give you. It's not like,
if you can stash him on IR, why not? Right.
Right. I mean, that's right. You stash him on IR. So you can carry Tajay Sharp and that would put 6, wide receivers on the roster. So you were surprised by that. What surprised you and who do you have that's different?
So I I'm just surprised because Harry, I know they didn't give up much for him, but he was a strong run blocker. We know how much they want to run, and they didn't even really get to see him. I mean, who knows what he was showing in practice or lack thereof. I think they're going to stash him on IR and then make a decision 8 weeks later. But
Sure.
I do agree with you. I was surprised that you had Sharp, and here's why. Because I agree with you. I think Pettis, after Saturday, makes the team, especially because he has some punt return potential as well,
Absolutely.
and he has pass success in the league. But I think Simba Webster makes the team. He's a mainstay on special teams. The Bears know him. He works hard. He has that special teams versatility, which I think is where his value comes from. And he's a solid player. They're kind of like that. He's kind of like a DeAndre Houston Carson, but for the offense. Like he's just like solid, reliable. He can make a play here and there. So I would have Simba Webster over Tajay Sharp. That's the only difference I would have with you, outside of N'Keal Harry, of course, too.
I don't hate that because I really, really like Simba Webster. I really do. And he does provide another special teams aspect.
Solid player.
He's a very solid player. And I think they can get really creative with the things they do with him. I just don't know if he's too similar to the guys that we already have, right? A little bit undersized, really, really fast. Like that's exactly what Darnell Mooney is. That's exactly what Byron Pringle is. It's exactly what Velus Jones Jr. is. Like Tajay Sharp's a little bit of a bigger guy. I think he's, how tall is Tajay Sharp? Like 6'1", 6'2". Let's take a look. But he's just sort of a different guy from, just, how he plays 6'2", 194. So, he's a little bit of a bigger guy. I don't know. That was the only reason why I thought maybe they keep Tajay Sharp over him, is just because he's sort of different in that aspect. But man, I would love for them to keep Simba Webster. Like, I don't think they go wrong either way. Like, I'm not going to, pound the table for Tajay Sharp, and I'm not going to be upset if they cut him. And I'm not either going to be upset if they cut, in Simba Webster, right?
No tears shed for Tajay Sharp.
No tears shed for Tajay Sharp, but he was sort of a preseason hero with that.
In the second game, he made a couple nice plays.
Sort of a preseason hero, sort of.
Are we giving the annual Tanner Gentry preseason hype award to Tajay Sharp?
I guess we'll give that out at the end of the show because I gotta look. I think I know who it is. I
have mine.
Let's just do it right now. Who is it?
Tristan Ebner.
No, it's not.
People love him. People love him.
You know who it is. Come on. Who is it? Big Ten guy, Illinois, Lake Zurich, made a couple big plays, special teams guy. It's Jack Sanborn. All right. I'm not going to be mad about it. I think people loved Tristan Ebner. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, but then he got hurt. Like, I think if he didn't get hurt, like, he would have won the award. But Bears Nation Podcast officially declares Jack Sanborn the Tanner Gentry preseason hero.
Jack Sanborn, come on down. You have won the annual Tanner Gentry preseason training camp hype up of the year award.
It's his biggest award he's won in the NFL so far. He should be honored.
I've long said that.
He should be honored. So, Dante, real quick again, the wide receivers again about Dante Pettis. Yes, thought he looked great. That move he put on the defender on that touchdown, my God, that was a good move. And again, that return aspect is the main reason why he made the roster. So 6 wide receivers. Let's go to tight ends. I think they carry 3. I think this is pretty easy for me. Cole Kmet, James O'Shaughnessy, Ryan Griffin.
Chalk here.
Yeah. No complaints. No pounding the table for Rice and John.
Nah.
Yeah. I after I went to Family Fest, I thought Rice and John had a chance. He has, good speed, big body, but he just didn't produce enough. Just didn't produce enough.
Well,
so I think they'll roll with Griffin.
Those bottom of the position group guys, like that's kind of how that goes with them. Like it because it all comes down to the special teams coach. What has he seen from them? Does it make sense to keep them? But so like it transcends our knowledge.
Yeah. And tight end it's worth knowing tight end is one of the more prominent special team. It can be one of the more prominent special teams positions. So I wouldn't be shocked if they carried 4, but I think you can. Yeah. And the thing about doing this every year is there's no like blueprint for, they're going to carry this number of wide receivers. They're going to carry this number of each position group. Like it changes team by team. It changes year by year. Like there's no standard. There's no blueprint for the amount of players that are carried at each position group. So that makes this a little bit harder. But I think just because of depth at other positions, like why would you carry Bryce St. John? Why would you carry Chase Allen when you could maybe carry another offensive lineman? So let's go to that unit next. I have them carrying 9. All right, Let's start with the guys who started against Cleveland. Larry Borum, Tevin Jenkins, Cody Whitehair, Braxton Jones, Lucas Patrick, Riley Reif, Michael Schofield, Sam Mustipher, and I think they carry Zach Thomas as well. That rounds it out for me. I think they carry 9 of them. Do you have any gripes with the offensive line and who we believe is going to make the roster for them?
Well, I was banging the table for Doug Kramer the entire time. Then, unfortunately, he got hurt and won't play
Practice
this
squad
year.
guy, no problem.
Yeah. But I don't have a problem with your top 8. I think that last ninth guy could be anybody, whether that's Shatir Carter or Zachary
Right.
Thomas, or pick any one of the undrafted free agents they brought in, any one of the late picks. I think this would have been Doug Kramer far and away, and that's, bias aside, as an Illinois guy. But I think, and the thing is, this might not be set. Like, this might be, I saw a tweet like something like 800 guys are going to get cut across the NFL tomorrow. Like, there are going to be guys to be. We know the Bears are going to be active, especially at offensive line, where this is still a unit that you're not completely comfortable with. They'll be active. They will be looking. And so I think that this ninth, even the 8th spot could change. I mean, Riley Reef has not played well. Michael Scoville has not played well. So the Bears, this might be that bottom 3. I agree. I think they'll take 9 because they need to take as many as they can rationalize. But, come to this time tomorrow, there might be guys that weren't on the roster today that are now 100%. Tomorrow.
So, and that's actually worth noting is, like, do they go under 53? Do they cut it? Do they go to like 52 or 51 with the anticipation that they're going to pick somebody up? Like, do right. they? I think that's a fair thing.
I think I think you do 53 because you can't assume that there's going to be somebody you like, because then, all right, what if then somebody who you cut gets scooped up and then you can't go back for him?
Yeah. So, I mean, and like they can go under 53. Like, it's not like they have to be at 53. They can go under, but you're 100% right. And that's why when I was doing this, I had that same line of thinking, and especially at the wide receiver position. Like, tomorrow they could cut it down to 53, right? And Tajay Sharper and Simba Webster could be on the roster.
Sure.
And the bottom line is, as you mentioned, you talk about 800 players, a good wide receiver, or not a good, but a wide receiver upgrade for this team.
Better than what you currently have.
Yes, is going to be available. That's fact of the matter. So Tajay Sharper and Simba Webster could be on the 53-man roster on Tuesday, and on Wednesday they couldn't. Like, I think that's just the way it's going to be. And this is, like, we have heard it from Ryan Poles that they're going to be active at this time. And I think it was the director of player personnel who was on the pregame of Fox 32 before the preseason game against the Browns, who was saying the same thing, who was talking about the amount of talent that's available around this time of year and how they're going to be active looking for talent. So the two biggest position groups, obviously, I think are going to be wide receiver and O-line, but also I think corner. I think secondary could be a place where they might be looking for, the guys who are on the island of misfit toys, who are cut, who are floating around. And, I don't know. I'll have to do, maybe I'll, we'll tweet something tomorrow about the guys that we think are going to get cut. I can't think of any names right now for certain teams who I think could get cut. That's just too much. That's too much brain power for me right now. To think
we haven't scoured other teams' waivers too.
We haven't. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball now. Let's start with the defensive tackles. I think they carry 5. Okay, I think they carry Justin Jones, Kyrus Tonga, Angelo Blackson, Mauro Edwards Jr., and I think they do carry Micah Treadway.
Okay.
It's kind of up in the air for me, but I think they could carry that. Do you have kind of the same there for the defensive tackle group?
So the only one that last defensive tackle, I think I might give a little bit of an edge to Sam Kamara, because it's his second year, has a little bit of familiarity with the team, has shown flashes. You can maybe take a flyer with him. But I mean, that last spot could go to literally any, like, pick Duke Treadway or Trevin Coley or Charles Snowden or Sam Kamara or Mike Pennell Jr. Like, out of those 5, that last tackle spot could go to any of them.
Yeah. Sam Kamara actually, I think it was in the Seahawks game, was rated like the number 1 defensive player in all of preseason for that Seahawks game. So I am Scox mentions the Bears are 7th in the waiver wire order. Definitely will be interesting. 100%. T3P podcast thinks Coley is a lot. Coley played well against Cleveland, but in the other games, in the first 2 games, Micah Treadway was making some plays, and he was making some plays, with the first stringers too. So, Coley is sort of on, has the advantage of recency bias, but I think overall,
it helps being a draft pick too.
It does, but we'll see what happens there. Let's go to edge. think they carry 4. I don't think this should be surprising at all. I just think they carry Robert Quinn, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Travis Gibson, and Dominic Robinson, right? I mean, I don't.
Yep, that's it.
That's, and I honestly wish we would have seen a little bit more from Travis Gibson this preseason. I want to say he was active in all games, right?
Yeah, even if here's my thing with Travis Gibson. Even if he doesn't show up with the sack numbers, you watch the tape, like you watch the games, he's there, he's around. I think he has shown enough progression this year where I think he can be a really solid player.
He's making enough of an impact as the backup there at edge, right? So, okay, so we got there at edge. Let's go to linebacker now. I think they might carry 6. That's a lot. I think they carry 6 just because that's the most prominent position for special teams. And I really do think this team values special teams, as they should. It's a very important part of the game. Obviously, it's going to be Roquan Smith, Nicholas Morrow as the 2 locks, and probably Matt Adams I would say he's a lock, right? At this point,
yes.
You consider him a lock. All right, so Nicholas Morrow, Roquan Smith, and Matt Adams are the 3 locks. Then I think it's Jack Sanborn, Joe Thomas, and I think DeMarquise Gates might make the roster. I think DeMarquise Gates might make the roster. I saw enough from him where he could be a special teams asset, but he was also flying around the field a little bit, especially in that Seattle game. I think they, when I broke this down, it made it possible for them to carry 6 linebackers. I think in this defense, given the fact that Matt Adams isn't the strongest player, neither is Jack Sanborn, like a lot of these guys.
You're keeping them more for special teams.
Yeah, you're keeping them for special teams, but also just because you don't really know who, like, you just that's a position where I'd be more okay having depth with. So
1,000%.
Did you have any gripes with that?
No. My big takeaway from this was, man, the drop off after Morrow and Roquan is
large.
It's tough. And I agree with you. I think they have to keep 6 just to have bodies and have options, because if either of those guys goes down, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. That's it. Simple as that.
My God. And that's why, my God, I don't even want to think about what that team would have been without Roquan Smith.
Exactly. Agree.
100%
agree.
Glad it's we're doing this. We're cutting down to the 53-man roster. Like, holy shit! Thank God.
Yeah, right.
Just had to play out his contract.
It made your bullet dodge. Yeah, 1,000%.
So, thanks, Roquan, I guess, for just play out the contract. You could have totally not done it. You would have been fine, but thanks, I guess. So there we have linebackers. You got 6 of them. All right, this is this one. I think this position group is the hardest to put together for me.
Absolutely.
Right? Cornerback. So we know you have. I mean, there might only be 2 locks. Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon. Now, I believe Kindle Vildor is a lock just because of how much playing time he's been getting. He wasn't getting torched in the preseason. Did he look phenomenal? No. Did he make the plays he needed to make? Yeah. Did he look okay? He had some nice tackles in the open field. He looked fine. He wasn't doing what he did last year against Minnesota, where he was getting absolutely picked on by guys like Justin Jefferson. I think it's Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Kindle Vildor. I think Thomas Graham Jr. makes it.
Okay.
Tavon Young, although injured, I think makes it. And Lamar Jackson as my 6th guy. So I think this one can go. This one's the hardest for me to do. I have a feeling yours is not going to be the same as mine.
I'm shocked. I mean, Thomas Graham and Tavon Young both injured. Keeping 2 injured corners is a bold move by you for sure. I agree with you. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Kindle Vildor, locks. I think Duke Shelley makes it as the top nickel backup. I know we don't love him as a starter, but when he was in the nickel and when he was a backup in the past years, he's been pretty solid. So I like that. I think Greg Stroman has a good game in Cleveland. I think that recency bias is going to go a long way. Now, this could, like most of these, like I said, this could go anyway. Lamar Jackson could also totally make this. Thomas Graham might be in there. Obviously, I don't have him on here. I would love to put Thomas Graham on there, but with his injury status being up in the air, I don't know. So it's just, I mean, I think like offensive line, I think the Bears are going to be very, very closely watching cuts around the league at corner.
100%. And this is like exactly what's going to happen is you got a guy who's probably like 33 or 32,
Sure.
right? Like I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Like a Prince Amukamura type deal. Like he's 32.
Bring him back.
No, not Prince Amukamura exactly, but just like a situation like that. Like guy he's been good in the past. He's not going to be a liability. He's a good veteran presence in a unit that could use a little bit of veteran presence, right? I think something like that you might see at cornerback, because a lot of the guys like, like a Lamar Jackson, very, young, unproven. He's 24 years old. You don't really know what you're going to get out of him. Tavon Young has done it in Baltimore, but again, he's injured. So like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like none of these, again, I would personally, I would be enraged if they cut Thomas Graham Jr. That's just because of, how much of a defender I've been of him.
What if they stash him practice squad again?
If they stash him practice squad, that's fine. Let him get healthy and, show what he can do later in season. Again, it really makes this difficult when you have injury situations like this. I don't really even know the status of Thomas Graham Jr. if he's supposed to.
Nobody does. We don't know.
Or not. I mean, nobody does.
We don't know him or Tavon Young really. And if they were healthy, I think Tavon Young and Thomas Graham would have been easy makes for the team.
100%. I mean, Thomas Graham Jr. was a player who would have shine. Shine.
I mean, we're higher on him than most people are.
Yeah, but he would have done well in the preseason. And that's our guy. So I mean, it is weird though, because even before he was injured, I don't know if this was before he was injured. I mean, how much of training camp did he participate in? When did he get injured? I can't even remember.
Yeah, it was early.
Because in that first depth chart, it was like weeks ago, they read out the first depth chart, and I can't remember if this was before he was injured or not, but he was the 4th-string cornerback. So you might be onto something when you're talking about they don't really believe in him and they ain't drafted him, they don't owe him anything. Like there could be truth to that, but from my eyes, the guy can play. So that's what we have at cornerback. Rounding it out with safeties, I got Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, DeAndre Houston Carson, Dane Cruikshank, Elijah Hicks.
Same. I have the exact same. Those bottom 3, they're just they're staples on special teams. Like that's. I mean, I already mentioned
a big time special teams player.
1,000%. So there's also a little bit of depth here. I mean, Hicks, I kind of like him. Like at Cal, he was a decent player. So, I mean, this all hinges on Eddie Jackson, the quality of the squad, of this unit. Like it all hinges on Eddie Jackson and what he looks like, and if he's one of those players that's fully bought into Matt Eberflus's, culture or philosophy, however you want to say it.
So while we were doing this, I did a little bit of research real quick. I popped up an article from Bleacher Report that is naming here the top 8 players that they think could hit the market tomorrow during cuts. So I'm going to read you this list, and I'm going to tell you if any of these guys are going to be or could be players that the Bears could target. All right. So,
let's do this. Let's just, because we only have special teamers left for.
Sorry.
So let's. I mean, we know what it's going to be: Cairo Santos, Trenton Gill, Patrick Scales. Okay, right. Good. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. All right. Moving on.
Okay, so we got that. So that was our 53. We rounded it out. We did the math, and it is correct. Okay,
for sure,
big math guys
100%
over here.
accurate.
We know how to add.
Yep.
I didn't even pull out the calculator. I did this on the train home, and I didn't pull out the calculator. All right,
very proud of you.
This is mental capacity. This is mental strength.
Your 4th and 5th grade teachers who told you would never have a calculator on you at all times are very proud of you somewhere.
They are. I'm gonna send them an email after this. Let's go to the top 8 players that Bleacher Report, whatever they know, thinks are going to be cut. Zach Bond, linebacker from New Orleans Saints. I don't really know who that is.
Nope.
But he has bounced between the
be careful, Kevin. The New Orleans fans will come for you now.
Here they come. Oh God. Don't clip it. Don't clip it.
Now you're gonna know how it feels.
I'm gonna know how it feels. Zach Bond. How many people in the chat right now? We got like 17 or 18 people watching. How many of you 17 people know who Zach Bond is? Put it in the chat. Funny. So let's not even worry about him. Jimmy Garoppolo, don't worry about that. Running back Myles Gaskin. They're not going to go after a running back. Ronald Jones, no. All right, here we go. Linebacker out of Atlanta, Nick Quitowski.
Oh God.
What's wrong with Nick Quitowski? I'd bring him back.
The ghosts of Christmas past.
Come on. Bring back Nick Quitowski. Run it back. I
mean, I don't hate it. And we know how good Eberflus is with linebackers.
He's been injured this summer. That has been the issue, according to Bleacher Report. He's been out. And they just activated Deion Jones out of the physically unable to perform list. So Atlanta could be releasing a linebacker, and they think it could be Nick Quitowski.
I would be open to that.
I would be open to it too. Again, I am Scott says he thinks Adams is going to be a surprise cut. I don't know about that. I mean, if they release Matt Adams, what the hell are you doing? I mean, is Jack Sanborn a starter? I mean, is he? If they release Matt Adams, I mean, hey, respect, Jake. I would like you to put some respect on the Tanner Gentry 2022 Preseason Hero of the Year award. Mm-hmm. Jack Sanborn, put some respect in this name. But Nick Quitowski, we think could be possible. Here's another guy, very intriguing name. People are going to know the name because of where he was drafted. Alex Leatherwood, offensive lineman for the
Oh my
Raiders.
God.
This is like a N'Keal Harry move, right? His first round draft pick, cut for whatever
Yeah, but
reason.
not just a first
and
round draft pick, a top 15 draft pick.
Yeah, where was he drafted exactly? I mean, he was like
13th, I want to say.
he was high, man.
It was like the surprise of the draft. Everyone's like, what are the Raiders doing?
Yeah, I don't know. They say he could get an opportunity as a tackle or a guard.
Okay,
in
17th
report,
overall. 17th overall.
17th. So in this report, this Bleacher Report says the Chicago Bears, who just moved second-year offensive lineman Tevin Jenkins from tackle to guard, may take a flyer on Leatherwood because of his collegiate dominance on the perimeter. So, like, they think he could be a target. I don't know. Like, what do you think Alex Leatherwood would be a target?
I remember on that draft night, because that was obviously the Justin Fields draft too. Like that draft night, once Leatherwood was picked, everyone was like, what the hell? Like, all right, so somebody's going to slide. And everyone was like, that's going to be like the move that has an effect on the whole draft because it just screwed everything up.
And Vegas took Damon Arnett in that draft too, who now was released after like weapon possession. Like that was weird, that was so bad for the Raiders and Mike Mayock. That was terrible. Yeah. So that's a name to keep an eye on. Is he great? No, but again, like this is the same N'Keal Harry conversation. First round pick, needs a change of scenery. Can he do well with a different system, different organization who maybe has a little bit more faith in him? Like, again, this is a guy you'd be picking up off the street. Like, there's really nothing to lose. If you had to cut, I don't know, Sam Mustipher for him, do it. But actually, I don't know if they will because Sam Mustipher is just like, he's just like your go-to.
Well, he can also play all over the line too.
Well, yeah, center but guard, it's like here, like Jake, when you go to a bar and then like you want to try like a new beer or something, but you just end up always going back to the Corona.
You go to your panic order.
You go to like that's Sam Mustipher for the Bears, right? Yeah, like that's just
if
anything goes wrong. That's a good analogy.
Like,
that's a fair analogy.
That is.
Can you give me some credit? Like I'm not great with analogies.
I'll give you credit. He's your panic order. I'll give you credit for that one.
It's not the best panic order, but like if I'm ordering, like PBR is not a good drink to drink at the bar, but
you know what you're getting.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
That's fair.
So this is where we get into the offensive skill position players. A name that has been floated around as a possible trade candidate, but it's probably not going to happen at this point, so they'll probably release him. Denzel Mims, who actually I think had 90 yards and a touchdown in their last preseason game for the Jets against the Giants. This has been a name that has been, again, floated around for the Bears as a potential target. I mean, what do you think?
I would love the Bears to take a flyer on him. I mean, he's better than like the other bottom of the barrel guys that you have on the roster already. So I definitely would not hate the Bears taking a flyer on him. Absolutely.
Yeah. It makes sense for the Jets. They save apparently $1 million by dropping him. He was a second round pick in 2020 back when Adam Gase was the head coach. So if we know anything about, players not thriving under a bad system, Denzel Mims is certainly
Adam Gase is all you need to say.
Yeah, Adam Gase. Like any name attributed to Adam Gase gets a free pass for whatever happened in their career during that time period.
Exactly.
So Denzel Mims definitely a name to look out for. Let's do the final guy, and then I'll ask you a question. Darius Slayton, wide receiver from New York Giants, again, was supposed to be another possible trade candidate. Don't think it's going to happen. Again, it's too late. They're going to cut him probably. The Giants have some younger receivers. I think, Darius Sterling Shepard was the guy in that video that we did about the Madden ratings who was rated above Darnell Mooney. Darius Slayton, I don't believe, was rated above Darnell Mooney, but this was a guy who actually picked him on my fantasy team a couple years ago last year. Like has a little bit of potential. 5th rounder out of Auburn back in 2019. In his career, I think 98 passes for 1,491 yards and 11 touchdowns through his first 2 seasons. So this is a guy who has done it a little bit. Last year, only 26 receptions for 339 yards and 2 touchdowns, but his first 2 years, dude was balling. So this guy, like this isn't just, like an Alex Leatherwood or maybe even a Denzel Mims where they really haven't really proven it. You're just kind of taking a flyer and hoping. Like, no, this guy produced in his first 2 years. He can produce. He just might be a cap casualty for them, just might save a little money by cutting him. Would you prefer Darius Slayton over Denzel Mims in the scenario that both are available to go to the Bears?
I would probably take Mims just because he's a little bigger. He's 6'3", 200, whereas Mims, I think, is like 6'1", 190. So I'll take the guy with a little bit more size. But, I mean, I wouldn't hate either of them. Just because of the state of the Bears wide receiver room, you kind of have to at least take a look at both of those guys.
Have to.
It's the reason you could look at Pettis and Sharp, because they were guys that had success in the league previously, and you're like, all right, screw it. Like, so if Mims or Slayton can be had for a reasonable price, or if you could just bring them in for money if they get cut, then yeah, I think it's absolutely worth it.
Hey, this is getting me excited now, right? Because like there's an opportunity here that they could really bring in some decent guys, man. Like
Sure.
they could elevate. Like you're not elevating the roster, from here to here. You're
Right.
not, I'm visualizing for those listening to the podcast. It's not a huge jump, but it's an improvement. It's an upgrade, right?
It's the type of upgrades, it's the type of moves that teams on the edges and that are flirting, like in that kind of purgatory that the Bears have been in for the last couple of years. So that's the type of moves you need to make, because if you let's say you sign Denzel Mims and suddenly he's awesome again, or he's like the player that you thought he could be when he was drafted, then all right, all of a sudden you have Darnell Mooney, who we think could be an over 1,200-yard receiver on this show. We have a lot of faith in. And you pair him with Mims and Kmet, that makes the outlook of your offense way brighter, for sure. And that makes Justin Fields, his future, way brighter. So, yeah, 1,000%. I mean, it's just some of those types of moves that you have to make when you're in a team in the Bears position, because you got to take swings.
Absolutely. And every year there are surprise cuts. Okay. Every single year there are some very, very surprising cuts. Like it's going to happen. Some other names on this list before we close out. I just want to read them out here. Andy Isabella, Cardinals wide receiver. This, I don't know who this USA Today thinks Marcus Peters, cornerback of the Ravens, coming off the ACL injury last year, could be, a cut, a potential cut. A potential casualty. Eli Apple, God.
Never Eli Apple.
Never Eli Apple. Cornerback Anthony Brown from Dallas had a good year last year. Cornerback Mike Hughes from Detroit. Oh, this website thinks the Packers are going to cut Sammy Watkins. There's no way that happens.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be a little bit surprised. I would be a little bit surprised. But anyway, I'm not going to go down the rest of this list. There will be guys available for the Chicago Bears to make this team better. The final question I have for you before we head out is, if you had to guess, if you want to, let's just make a prediction, either a player or position group, what move you think will surprise you the most tomorrow, whether it's a cut player, whether it's a player who's going to be cut, or whether it's a player who's going to be picked up at a position group. Do they pick up a wide receiver, an offensive lineman? What coming across your Twitter feed tomorrow is going to shock you the most?
So I won't throw a name out there, obviously, because there's so many that could be in that pool. I think something will happen. So which one do I want to pick? I think something's going to happen at receiver. It has to. I mean, you're so desperate at that position. I think it's more of like, if beggars can't be choosers, and the Bears are beggars in this situation in the worst way. I think something will happen. I don't know what, but they'll make maybe multiple moves because you need to have something, take multiple bites at the apple when it comes to the wide receiver room.
I agree. I'm going to tell you on that. I'm going to, I am Scocks with a really good comment here saying the wide receiver coach for the Bears, Tyke Tolbert, also coached Darius Slayton in New York. That's a very, very important connection. I'm going to go on a limb and just for the sake of predictions, think it's going to be Darius Slayton. I think he gets caught by the Giants. I think the Bears pick him up. Big upgrade for the Bears. I think they make a move. Jake, it all happens tomorrow, man. The big day, the big cut down. It's going to be a busy day for us tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a busy day for the Bears for who they bring in, who they cut. It'll be interesting. Like Kevin said, that there's always surprise cuts. That does not exclude the Bears. I'm sure there's going to be a couple surprise names that we see that we're like, oh, wow, really? But that happens to every team. But for us and the purposes of this show, we will be back next week in studio. Kevin's made some tweaks, made some upgrades to preview week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers. We are this close, people. We're at the finish line. It's been a long offseason of speculation and arguments between Kevin and myself about this roster and the direction of the Bears, but it's all back. We talk about things that are actually happening, things that are actually going to be played on the Soldier Field turf. It all happens next Wednesday. So come back right here, Bears Nation Podcast, all the socials on this channel. We'll be here to break down the Bears Week 1 matchup against San Francisco. Until then, for myself, for Kevin Lapka, this has been Bears Nation Podcast. We will see you next week. And as always, bear down.